Welcome to Cloud Stories, where your host, Heather Smith, interviews some brilliant minds from the Xero ecosystem and beyond. This show shares stories from our community, developers, cloud integrators, end users, Xero solution providers, business consultants, accountants, bookkeepers, and people riding the cloud. Together we gain a 360-degree insight into this evolving phenomenon. We pick up tips, tools, and tactics from stories shared. We understand where the pieces of the puzzles fall into place, and in turn we can propel our business to the next level. Now here's your host, the very curious Miss Heather Smith.
Hello and welcome to Cloud Stories. Today I'm talking to Tom Wallace of Re-Leased. But before I start chatting with Tom, let me share with you details of some upcoming episodes. I shall be talking with Chris Wheatley of Scope Accounting. Chris launched his business 8 weeks ago, and I jumped at the opportunity to talk with a young accountant putting himself out there and launching his own venture. I have in mind that I'll revisit Chris along his journey and gain insights from his raw experience of starting a brand new accounting firm. Maybe it will inspire others to take the leap. But back to today's guest. Today I'm talking with Tom Wallace, the founder and CEO of Re-Leased, a cloud-based property management software designed to automate and simplify the management of your property management portfolio. Hello, Tom, and welcome to Cloud Stories.
Hi, Heather. How are you?
Good, thank you, Tom. So, Tom, let's start with a hard question. What did you like to do when you were 12 years old?
All I liked to do when I was 12 years old was play rugby.
Oh, sensational.
That's probably the same for every kid in New Zealand, I would think.
Awesome. Yes, I imagine so. So, Tom, when and why did you start your business?
Yeah, so I started my business Re-Leased back in 2011. Well, that's when the idea was formed. I was working for my family's property company down in Hawke's Bay, and I was really, really keen on technology and really keen on property at the time as well. So I was having all sorts of ideas around technology companies to start. A lot of them were really bad. Some of them were okay. But eventually, after sort of talking to a lot of people and just continuing to refine ideas, I just saw, a pretty good opportunity in the property space simply because I looked at what the family's company was using to manage their property. I started researching what was out there, and I didn't find anything that I liked, or I didn't find anyone that I thought was doing it particularly well in the cloud space. And obviously at the same time, we had a little company called Xero doing pretty well in New Zealand who I was really inspired by. And so I just, sort of thought if we could build in with that and basically follow their lead, there'd be a great opportunity, and that's how it all came about.
So that's interesting. So having Xero there really helped you feel that you could move forward with this idea?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
A catalyst, perhaps?
Absolutely. I mean, simple questions that I would have asked myself, like, will people in the UK buy New Zealand software? I didn't have to worry about that because I could see it happening, and I knew that, as long as the quality was there, and we developed the best in the market, that we could sell it to the world. And they broke down that's just an example of one barrier that they broke down for us.
It's interesting looking into New Zealand, trying to understand why so many small tech companies are emerging from there, and trying to identify whether it's because of the infrastructure, because of the education, or because of Xero and Xero inspiring everyone.
Yeah, I think Xero certainly it helps and is a huge part of it, but we've got a lot of smart, talented people doing other, Vend and TradeMe, all these companies have done really well. I think TradeMe is it's the only country in the world where eBay was beaten. I mean, eBay basically doesn't exist in New Zealand, and they have tried a number of times.
Oh.
And TradeMe beat them, and it's a massive, massive billion-dollar company now. So there's been quite a few sort of inspiring stories. And New Zealand being a small place, those stories spread, and people get inspired by it. And basically, when people see that you can be in New Zealand, you can be pretty far away from the rest of the world, apart from our Australian cousins, and you can do well. It's pretty inspiring for companies like us to follow.
Yes, absolutely, and we probably have the feeling looking in New Zealand that you all know one another, whether that's true or not.
or related as well.
Yeah. I didn't say that, you did. So can you explain, Tom, to our listeners what Re-Leased does?
Absolutely. So Re-Leased is, to keep it really simple, Re-Leased is property management software. So it's a way of taking all the stresses of property management, which is obviously collecting the rent and looking after all the expenses and looking after there's so many key dates, key tasks, key reminders that all hinge around it and are all really important because of the value of doing these. I mean, if someone misses something like a rent review, it can cost them $10,000, and in our experience so far, we see people doing that all the time. So what we do is we automate all of the expense side of things. So we generate rent invoices, we send them to Xero, we automatically generate operating expenses invoices and send them to Xero, and then we allow Xero to do the financial heavy lifting, which is one of the main differences of what we do compared to other existing property software where they're within their own application. And as sort of everyone's learning now is that accounting software is incredibly complex, and for us to basically strip out the majority of that, and saying that we do some forms of it, but for us to strip that out and just focus on that integration, and then ourselves we can have a laser focus on building the best property management software in the world, is huge for us. We don't have to worry about building these big accounting things, and for companies that we compete with who are distracted by that, and they will never get anything, in my opinion, close to Xero on the accounting functionality. It's really big for us, and they get the best of both worlds.
Absolutely, so that's very interesting. Do you can you share with the listeners what platform Re-Leased is built on?
Yeah, we build on .NET.
.NET, okay.
Yep.
I have no idea what that is, but I'm sure there's someone.
Microsoft.
Oh, okay.
We use Microsoft Azure as our cloud platform provider as well. We get asked that quite a lot.
Okay.
Obviously, it's one of the major ones. When we started, they were relatively new, and we've been really, really happy with the performance we've had across our time. We've had no major outages. It's really fast. It's a really cost-effective way, and because it's so cost-effective, we can do things like offer unlimited document storage. We don't have any limit on the number of documents that our users can upload, and while we monitor it to make sure that all of your property and tenant information, and not necessarily your music and photos and movies and things. We just haven't had a need yet to limit it, and that's just it's just one of the cool benefits that other providers charge a lot of money for document storage and put big limits on it. So it's a good advantage for us.
No, it is, yes. For listeners listening in who are unfamiliar with this world, a lease document can be up to maybe 20 to 30 pages long and specifies all the different legal requirements of the lease. And I know that, as Tom knows, I utilise this system for some clients, and we can just upload the leases and have it attached in there, which is very useful.
Yeah, a lot of our users, not just so much the property management side, but we have a lot of private investors as well, and they tend to travel around. We had one user last year who was going to UK for 3 months, and he knew he had I think about 6 rent reviews, which meant he had to take the leases in a box with him all the way to the UK for 3 months, and he ended up taking 4 of them with the wrong ones. So for him to be able to load it in at the time of receiving that lease and know that wherever he is, if he's in London, if he's in Australia, if he's in New Zealand, he can just all he needs to do is find a web connection and he can access all of his information.
Absolutely.
So that was big for him.
No, it was huge. I'm not mentioning the client's name, but once we had the client up on Re-Leased and Xero integrated, he went on a month holiday to France, and it was like the first big long holiday I've known him take in maybe a decade. So
they should have taken me and you with him then.
Yeah, he should have done. I think he was trying to get away from work though.
Fair enough.
Okay, you've briefly mentioned how Re-Leased integrates with Xero. It's pushing invoices into Xero. Is that correct?
The invoice is one of the places that we integrate with Xero. We have I think we have one of the deepest integrations across all the add-ons, because we integrate everything is two-way flowing, so we integrate all the invoices back and forward. Tomorrow we're releasing full credit notes syncing back and forward, but we also sync bank transactions, we also sync contacts, we also sync tax types, chart of accounts, and if I didn't say tracking categories is there as well.
Yes. No, it was a very comprehensive integration, yes.
So there's a lot of information that flows back and forward, which is really cool. I mean, it's a deep integration, and we really like that. It saves. There's never any double entry basically between the two systems, which is something we would absolutely want to avoid.
Yeah, Yes, absolutely. And it does minimise that confusion by having that sort of integration. And I know that I'll throw in here for someone who's setting it up, you want to primarily set up the integration in Re-Leased because everything is pushed across, except I think the chart of accounts. You set the chart of accounts up in Xero, but then push everything across.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, sorry, I forgot. We're also syncing with our new trust accounting we've started in beta, but we're actually syncing banking transactions, so it'll always have your current, when you've got your trust account, it'll always know the current balance of that trust account as well.
Okay,
so
excellent.
It's been a pretty big build for us, but it's we're really looking forward to getting that out to the market.
Excellent. So talking about that, how do you decide where you will focus your development of Re-Leased? How do you come up with deciding we're going to take this money and we're going to invest it on focusing in development here?
Yep, no, good question. Well, for the last sort of 12 or 8 months or so, maybe a little bit more, we've been focusing on building our trust accounting functionality. It was quite clear. We launched without it because it was quite big, and we learned a lot after we launched, and then we realized now's the time to do it. So that was a decision that was quite obvious. We really wanted this Australian property managers market. We knew there's absolutely no way of getting it without doing trust accounting compliance each state and New Zealand. So that decision was easy for us. It was just a matter of prioritizing it. In terms of the rest of the development, because there's a much wider development that goes on around that as well. We've got a number of different things we do, but we use a Trello board, which is a really cool free project management board. I don't know if you go,
Yes.
some of the listeners might know it.
Trello,
and
yes.
So
and
we
I'll
have
put that in the show notes. Sorry.
Yeah, it's really, we really love it, and it's just allows collaboration between the Re-Leased staff and the development team. But what we do is we record every single user suggestion that we get in that, which is quite long, and so a lot of them are duplicates. But the important ones you wouldn't even have to write down because you hear them all the time, so you actually know the important ones. But we record our user suggestions. We also record what we want ourselves, and then sort of roughly every 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have a bit of a debate and prioritize those, and we'll put them into our prioritized categories and go from there. So we have a debate sort of internally with the team, and then I will work with our lead developer in terms as well, and I'll make the final decision on what goes where and when.
Cool. I know that I've just been trying out a calendar booking system called Timely. And for the feature development, they gave me 1,000 votes. I was like 1,000. Yeah. And so they have all the possible developments, and you've got 1,000 votes to share amongst them all.
Oh, that's cool. Actually, when we booked this meeting, was my first experience with Timely, and it looks really cool. I met the team at our XeroCon when we launched last year, Ryan, and they were great. We were both in Startup Alley together, actually, and it's really cool to see. They just raised a big funding round down in Dunedin, so it's got some good investors in there, so it's really, really cool. It's great to see another New Zealand company really going for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't think I could do this show on cloud stories without having a cloud calendar booking system. I'll send you. We can try and book the system using multiple emails, but no, I'll put that up there.
No, it was good. It was nice and clean, and it was great.
It is. Yes, absolutely. So am I correct in understanding Re-Leased is now suited for both residential and commercial property managers? So an investor could have both types of properties in the single solution?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's alongside trust accounting, been working really hard on our residential optimization. Basically, when we launched, this was always the plan as well, was to launch with a commercial focus. The reason was that is because not only was that what I knew, but we decided that was quite a lot bigger in terms of functionality. There's a lot of stuff going on in terms of rent reviews, OPEX, budgets and wash-ups, rights of renewals, all of that. And we decided to build that, really focus on nailing that first. And we felt very comfortable at the end of last year that we'd done that, or the majority of that, and then we decided to focus on the residential side, which it does have a reasonable amount of difference. And the fact that we're aiming for both markets is very unique. We haven't come across anyone that's done it well. And so that's a big challenge, but a big opportunity for us as well. And so the major differences between residential and commercial, a lot of it comes down to tenant arrears, to be honest. So commercial, generally the rent's paid on time. It's an AP, it's a company. Residential, you might have some people that are slow or, not so good at paying. And so we built tools like, you can set your own arrears rules basically. So if someone's 3 or 5 or 7 days late, they can get certain messages that you design yourself, and they use all the replacement fields to put in the relevant information, and they can get that, either by email or text or both. And all of that's automated. So that's just one example of a number of differences that we've been working really hard on. And we're basically launching that side of things at XeroCon next week. So that's the trust accounting and the residential optimization. Okay. Yeah, and saying that, we've still got a bunch of new stuff we're continuing to work on, and we're continuing to improve it all the time. But we're getting very happy with how that residential side's coming along, and also we've managed to do it in a way where, I mean, the main goal is that you don't want to release residential and then have all our commercial customers go, hey, what are all these boxes and fields doing here? They've got absolutely nothing to do with us, and vice versa. So what we can do is, the very first thing you do when you set up a property is tell the system if it's residential, commercial, or mixed. And whatever you select there, we'll throw different options at you down the bottom of the screen instantly. You won't see it even change. So if you're residential, it's going to ask you things like bedrooms and bathrooms and chattels that you may have there. In commercial, it won't ask you that. In commercial, it'll do things like tell you your weighted average lease term of a building, which is, the sort of the sum of the time remaining of all of your tenants. And that sort of stuff just isn't very relevant for the majority of our residential users. So we've managed to build it in a way where the user will only see what's relevant to them in most cases. And we think that's pretty important, because we kind of find if someone's using a system and they get the feeling it's not designed for their use, that can be really off-putting, and we definitely wanted to avoid that. And so far, I think we're tracking well to do that. Yeah,
absolutely. So with what you've said in mind, does the Re-Leased program integrate with the Xero Cash Books program?
No, right now we don't integrate with the Xero Cash Books. We've actually been investigating that, and we haven't actually had and come across a way to do it well. So we're all fully invoice-based right now.
Okay. No worries. That's good to know. Good to know. So Re-Leased now has trust accounting functionality. Can you explain to our listeners, see if you can, what trust accounting is and why it's such a big deal?
Yeah. And the very basics of trust accounting, to boil it down to something very simple, is it's the ability to accept a property manager, so one bank account, to accept money on behalf of, say, 100 or 1,000 different owners. And then, because that money's not there, they have to track, each cent has to be tracked to every owner, and then it has to be paid out. So there's all sorts of rules that are applied onto that. So within that one bank account, you can't use owner A's money to pay for owner B's expenses. No one can be overdrawn. But in saying that, owner A, if he happens to own property C, they can use that money to spread across their own funds. And what we do is it's generally either a mid-month or an end-of-month disbursement, but it can be done at any time. And at that disbursement time, we basically click off a wizard which will pay out all of the creditors. It'll pay out to the bond authorities. It'll pay the management fees to the company itself, and they might be receiving they might get fees on every rent, they might get fees on every maintenance item they do. There's tons of different fees that we can charge. And then lastly, we pay out the owners any remaining money from that rent, less all those expenses. And we create a bank file, an ABA file, which we then upload in banking, and it makes all of those payments for them. Going forward, we would love to not create that bank file and have it directly go into Xero and then onto the banking. So ASB in New Zealand is the first one to launch that, which is pretty exciting.
Yes.
The least we can export things and then have to import them, the better on our point of view.
Absolutely.
In this day and age, seems a little bit backwards and a little bit crazy. Like the fact that we've had to deal with checks. I actually lost a bet with our head developer for a box of beers that he said, you will have to deal with checks in Australia, and I said, we won't, and we do. So because the bond authority only accepts payments by check in a lot of states. The other thing that is making the build really challenging as well, is that each state has quite different legislation, and everyone gets audited every year. So we have to make sure that we're fully compliant with each state's regulation, which is it's a challenge. But we've known that from the start. We've had our lawyers going through the regulations, going through everything, all through the legislation, and providing advice. We're getting great feedback and great assistance from a number of different partners. So it's I can understand why they put that in there, because you're looking after some
money.
Hundreds, and a lot of money in a lot of cases as well. So it's important to make sure we have a rock solid system, and it's important. We need that to build up our trust. There's a lot of money flows through Re-Leased, and we we have to make sure we're in an environment where we can't lose a cent, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah, trust accounting is a very specialist area, and for advisors out there who are kind of looking to identify where they should niche and focus on, that is another area that is a good area to focus on. And the other thing I'll throw in there is for advisors looking to look at add-on solutions to learn, one of the good things about Re-Leased is that you're typically dealing with a client who actually has quite a decent amount of money and is prepared to pay for the adoption of a new solution and the full integration of it, which sometimes is not always the case. Sometimes people want things, but they're like, do I have to pay for it as well? Yeah.
No, we're lucky that property is generally a big ticket item and a lot of money flowing through it. And also the market's used to paying really, really expensive software. At least you're spending the money on that. And so Re-Leased, although it's the upper end of the cost for any other Xero add-on, we're certainly generally much cheaper than anyone else out there with a comparative product. So we find that that's really, really useful in terms of that. And also because we're our average revenue per user is a bit higher, we can afford to spend more time with each customer, making sure they're set up. We take on a lot of the implementation role to make sure that everything is of the top quality. For us, it's getting that data in there and the best quality is hugely important for us. We're all about creating long-term relationships with everyone that we have, of course. So it's really important to make sure the data is of that top quality.
I know that I looked into a solution like yours before you came along, and I looked into, as I do most things, quite extensively, and I was looking at $40,000 a year subscription to it, and that was like the cheapest I could find out there. So at the end of the day, you're cheap as chips compared to those guys.
We get $100,000 ones, isn't that rare as well?
So probably a norm, absolutely. So for someone to come along and get your solution and recommend it to someone, while it may appear a big ticket item, it's a massive cost saving for them and time saving as well, because it's so automated. So it's Re-Leased is one of those solutions that you can implement. I'm sounding advertorial now, but you can implement and make the client very happy about things. So,
that's good. We've had one of our favourite stories. One of them is a user that was using MYOB and another software. I won't say the name of the other software, but they used to take them 3 days a month to do all of their billing and everything, and they've got it down to 3 hours now.
Yep.
And a lot of that, to be fair, a lot of that efficiency is created at Xero's end as well, because they moved to Xero and Re-Leased. But Re-Leased allows them to use Xero and get that full functionality, which they didn't. It just wasn't an option for them before. They couldn't. They looked at Xero before Re-Leased was around and just decided it wasn't for them. But there was now the option. So that's really cool. We love hearing those sort of things.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. It revolutionises the business. So, Tom, how many people do you have working in your business?
Yeah, so we've got right now there's 4 in our Auckland office. Plus we've got a data team, which we've got 3 in our data team. They're all sort of part-timers. I can see in the office now that all of them are here, so they're not that part-time because we've got a lot of data we're working on. We've got a team member in Sydney. We've got a team member in Melbourne, and that team's really going to expand. Our Australian team's really expecting that to expand sort of to 6 to 10 staff members in the next 6 to 12 months. We're really looking to that to grow. Plus, we have an external development team. Actually, we're a bit different in that sense. We have an external development team of we have about 6 developers on there now. We've just increased that, so we have got 6 developers working full time on that.
Is that a separate business that you run?
No, it's not. It's not my business. It's actually the background story to how we came across that is when I was looking to start. 11, it was kind of, okay, how do we get started? Do we go and hire some developers? Do we go external? And we sort of looked around. I did a lot of research, and there was only 3 Xero certified development companies in the country.
Yes.
One was in Auckland, one was in Wellington, and one was in Hawke's Bay, about 20 minutes from where I was. So I went and met with them. Got along really well with them, and we've got really long-term contracts in place with them now. They had 4 staff when we started, and they've got 14 in there now. We've actually got a second product we've developed with them as well, and we're just really happy with them. They've been and Phil, their lead developer, is more like a CTO in a sense to us, and we're very close with them. And there's we've always had the opportunity to bring things in house, but there's never been a time where that has made any sense. I don't think we'd have any better quality. I don't think we'd be any faster, and I certainly don't think we'd be any cheaper as well. And plus the other thing in New Zealand, and I believe in Australia as well, is that finding development talent is tough. We've got, not only do we have sort of Xero and TradeMe, we've got companies like Orion Health and Vend who are also New Zealand companies doing big things, and you've got to compete with them. So we're really lucky to have the relationship we do, and I think the quality sort of speaks for itself.
What was the name of the company again? Do you mind sharing?
The company's called Red Jungle, and they're based out of Hawke's Bay.
Weird Jungle?
Sorry, Red, R-E-D.
Red. Oh, okay. Red Jungle. Okay. I'll leave the details in the show notes. Thank you for that. So one of your staff members, I believe, is your sister, Inga Wallace. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
What's it like working with family members in the business?
Oh, it's really cool. Yeah, well, she's not the only family member as well.
Oh, is she? No? Okay.
It's Dad's actually my co-director of the company, so he has a small shareholding in the business as well, so I spend a lot of time talking through strategy. He's very experienced in business, so we spend a lot of time working on strategy.
That's sensational.
Inga was the first hire of Re-Leased, so I managed somehow to convince her to leave her regular job at Telecom, where she was the head of marketing for all of their business hubs. And she sort of came and joined us pretty early on in the Re-Leased journey, and it's fantastic. It's really cool to be working alongside. Yeah, to be looking alongside family.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Sometimes family relationships. I was wondering whether you came from an entrepreneurial family, and it sounds like you do. If your father's in the business with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was sort of basically, it was always sort of bred into me that I was going to be doing something by myself. I just didn't know what it was going to be, and it just so happens that it's software as a service company.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got some new features which are being released or about to be released. What's your marketing plan to let the public know about them?
Cool. So the most basic one is coming up next week is XeroCon, which is really big for us. I think there's 1,500 accountants and bookkeepers, I believe, is the latest count. I could be wrong.
Yes.
But it's a huge opportunity for us, and because we're quite a specific vertical, we have sort of some of the accountants and bookkeepers almost run to our stand and say, hey, I've got 10 clients they're in real estate, show me what you've got, and we show them, and then they go back, and it's a really great way of getting a one-to-many approach out there. So XeroCon's big for us. We've also been planning a roadshow in conjunction with Xero and a few other partners. It was going to be in September, but we just decided to push it back a little bit because we know we're going to be flat out with the work after XeroCon. So it's probably going to be, at this stage we haven't confirmed the time, but it's going to be either late this year or early next year, probably early next year.
Yes.
And that as well is a really good opportunity for us. We do basic SEM and SEO, but we're really sort of only beginning to push that now. We really want to start doing a lot of our video marketing. It's really, really important to us, getting that video marketing. And also the, I mentioned XeroCon, but the accountants and bookkeepers channel in general, we're just sort of getting our partner program up and running now, and we really want to promote that because it's a great way to meet, particularly for the private investors. The real estate agents, the property managers aren't quite as hard to find because they advertise.
Yes.
And we can sort of contact them directly. We've got a really good sales team that can do that. And once we get the product in front of them, we have a really good conversion rate. Whereas on the other target market of ours is private investors, and they're actually quite difficult to find. You can't necessarily just Google someone, and some of the people that are our customers, they have multi-million-dollar portfolios, in some cases $100 million portfolios, and if you type their name into Google, you wouldn't find anything about them, simply because they don't need, their business doesn't operate on
profile.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you meet them, you don't even know that.
They don't necessarily want people to know. And, if you need their business, you go and, you become a tenant, you talk to real estate agents. So
yeah.
A really good way for us to find these people is through their accountants.
Yeah, absolutely. As an accountant, I frequently say the poorest looking person is normally the richest person in the room.
Yeah,
it's the person who's the most dressed up's normally the poorest. So
we just we see some truly massive companies coming into Re-Leased, and no one would have a clue. And it's quite cool because they don't go out there, and a lot of them don't go out there and shout about how great their company is. They're just sort of really quiet achievers. Absolutely. But it does create a challenge for us because we can't just ring them up and say, hey, you've got to look at Re-Leased. We've got to have them come to us in a way, and we work through the accountants, because the accountants and bookkeepers are one of the only people that really know
what their clients are doing.
Yeah, what they're doing and how much release would suit them and automate what they do. So
yeah, absolutely. Look, I agree with that. I think it's really important for the accountants and the bookkeepers to know the solutions and be able to just kind of have that imprinted on them. Like this, if I need this, I go to this solution. So you've talked mainly about Australia and New Zealand. Does Release work overseas? Does Release work in America or in the UK or Canada, or is it very difficult because of different laws, etc.?
No, we have customers in all of those markets you mentioned.
Fantastic.
South Africa, Fiji, getting a few more sort of obscure countries, which is really cool. Everyone likes doing that. And that works really well. The only issue we have right now is with time zones. We get decent amount of inquiry, particularly from the UK right now, and we run probably half a dozen direct demonstrations with end users a week with them. But the problem is it's my poor team is quite often working quite late at night to make sure the time zones work, and also we really pride ourselves on our support. We want to have the best support possible and build these long-term relationships, and it's frustrating for the team if someone has even a small issue from the UK and they have to wait up to possibly 8 hours to get a response from us. It's just not good enough for the standards we set. So we're looking to open an office, a small office in the UK early next year.
Yes.
And likewise, doing the same with America. We have American customers, but it's a huge opportunity over there and vastly untapped. So we will be, we have plans to progress that, probably pretty quickly actually. And early next year we'll see. Well, I'd expect some big developments for the US market as well, which is hugely exciting. It's just so big.
Yeah, no, absolutely it is. So that is very exciting. So, Tom, you won the 2014 Talent Unleashed Awards Rising Star Award and the Xero New Zealand 2014 Emerging Add-on of the Year Award. Congratulations on that. How
Thanks.
important are business awards?
For me personally, I mean, it doesn't really faze me personally, but for the business itself and getting the amount of exposure we get from those, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's massive. You get, like the New Zealand Herald and Idealogue magazines. It's fantastic, and it's really cool. I mean, our team works so hard on everything we do. It is nice every now and again to sort of, for them to go, okay, cool, we're doing the right thing, we're getting recognised, but no one here actively sort of chases after personal awards. It's not really what we're in it for, but it is nice. But the exposure is critical for us.
Absolutely. I was kind of thinking, because your solution, while we both like your solution, it's kind of for the media a little bit. I say this with respect and in the nicest possible way. It's a bit boring for the media to talk about. Oh yeah. But you are getting a lot of exposure in the media through these awards, so I think you're crushing it that way. So. That's sensational for Re-Leased. So what one tip do you have for another business wanting to enter a business award now that you are the expert in winning these awards?
Good question, actually.
Is it Inga? Get Inga on board?
Get Inga to proofread everything I write in terms of the entry forms, because she does all the spell checking for me and finds the whole bomb of it. I don't know. I think we're very honest about what we do. I think we lay our plans pretty bare in terms of what we're trying to achieve. We don't really hold back a lot. We're pretty honest, kind of a bit like Xero, really. We all know that they're going after the US market. They're not trying to sneak up and surprise into it. They're telling people that they're going for it, and that's pretty inspiring. A lot of sort of the old style of business was to sort of keep everything closed, big walls around what you're doing. We're just pretty open with what we're doing. We're not trying to build a small family sort of company. It is quite family based. We're not trying to build a small sort of quiet company that just gets by. We're really having a go and trying to build the biggest company we can. And we tell people that. We tell them how we plan on doing it. And I think being honest and open with that is what sort of gets people excited.
Sensational.
Just basically keeping it honest is a pretty good approach. Yeah, there's not much that we do or plan to do that we don't talk about openly.
Thank you very much for that. So I have one last question for you, Tom. What advice would you have for a school leaver who wants to be the next Tom Wallace and found his own tech company?
My first advice would be that the traditional pathway, I think, that school or is ingrained in you through school and things, is to do well at school, then go to uni and do well at uni and then get the best job you can. And I just think that's so wrong. There's so many different ways to do, there's so many different options and no one tells you at school. And it would have been great if more people at school said, hey, you can just start something yourself. It doesn't even have to be technology. You can get up and do something. You don't have to follow that beaten path that everyone else does. So that's one side of thing. The other side of things I would say is that there is, in New Zealand, and I'm sure in Australia as well, in fact I know in Australia, there's so many talented, amazing people that are, done really, really well, much bigger and better than I've done. And everyone that I ever approached was so open to talking. I mean, you don't want to just go with the goal of getting something from them, but if you contact someone that's done really well, I've found that pretty much as long as you're polite and have a good reason, then they're willing to sit down and talk with you. And there's just so many people. I mean, I was really lucky that where I was living in Hawke's Bay was a little town called Havelock North, and there's only about 15,000 people there, and one of them happens to be Rod Jury. So I managed to track down his phone number, and he's running a. If it wasn't $1 billion company at the time, it was pretty close to it.
Yeah.
He never, I don't think he wouldn't have heard of me, so I just sort of gave him a call and said, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. I know you're super busy, but if you had a chance to talk about it. And I was sitting down having a coffee with him probably 2 days later and said, this is what I'm thinking of doing. He said, well, that sounds good, but come back in a month with a plan. And so we did that, came back with a plan, and he said, go for it, go do it. And I've had the opportunity to go back every now and again and give him little updates and show him what we're working on. And he's just to have that reassurance that we're on the right track from someone like Rod. He even came up with ideas. I mean, some of our mapping functionality was actually his idea, which is kind of cool. But I would just say just get out and talk to people and learn. I mean, there's, in the same sense as well, there's the amount of blogs and material you can read and be inspired by. I just started pouring through blogs and books like Rework by the 30 Second Signals guys. Love that book. And they're just, it's all out there. I mean, it's no one really, and it's all free on the internet too. So there's no real excuse for not, if you really want to do it, going out and finding how.
Yes, absolutely. But as a writer, I hope you buy books.
I do. We're all coming through.
Not you, but the listeners. Buy books.
Yeah. I actually, the one sort of tech thing that I'm behind on is that I actually still buy them in paperback because I kind of share them around with everyone in the office afterwards. So every couple of weeks every week or so there'll be a Amazon package, and I can't even remember what we've bought until we open it up. So it's like Christmas every time I go.
Yeah, I actually find the very tech people buy paperback books, and the not so tech people buy them via the iPad or by the ebooks. It's actually interesting. It's because I'm watching who's buying what, and people are telling me. So that's kind of a really bizarre observation that seems to ring true several times.
Yeah, I don't know why. I spend all day at a screen, and I just kind of like having I know that my bookshelf's full, and I just quite like having them there. It's just a personal thing. I think it's cool, but I can understand I'm travelling around a bit as well. It'd be quite nice not to take books in there. So there is definitely a place for the Kindle as well, or the iPad.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom, so much for speaking to us today and sharing so many insights with us. I'll leave details in the show notes of how you can get in touch with Tom Wallace and find out more about his solution, Re-Leased. My name is Heather Smith, and you've been listening to Cloud Stories.
This show is sponsored by Rental SaaS. Rental SaaS is your end-to-end rental management solution, enabling you to keep track of bookings, hired items, and manage your inventory. Rental SaaS integrates seamlessly with Xero. Contact Siva and his team at rentalsaas.com for further information. If you want to get in contact with Heather Smith, please visit her website at www.heathersmithsmallbusiness.com. If you wish to find out more about XU magazines, contact Heather at au@xumagazine.com. You've been listening to Cloud Stories. If you like this podcast, please download it, share it with friends, share it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and social media. And one more thing, can you leave Cloud Stories a 5-star rating on iTunes? Thank you.